Strong for Life Live, or the Strong for Life podcast if you're not catching this live in the Facebook group or on YouTube. Today we're going to talk about a very contentious topic, burpees, the most overprescribed and least understood exercise given to you by your personal trainer. Sorry guys. But before that, I just want to say welcome to everybody who's catching this live, and if you're catching this on the podcast streaming platforms, this is the podcast for busy parents and professionals, those who are time poor and just need a quick hit of useful information. So we keep this short, generally under 20 minutes, and just pick a topic each week to go over. So if you're catching this as a podcast, please like, rate, and review. Helps me know that I'm talking to somebody. And also just leave questions, comments, concerns, refutations. Let's keep the conversation going, because half the fun of the internet is talking to all you folks around the world and having meaningful discussions and hopefully getting the right information to those that need it. So always happy to see comments. Let's see here. So it is a beautiful, rainy, drizzly, foggy Tuesday morning in Hobart, Tasmania. And as far as announcements go, we've got two things. One, if you have not tried my recipe for the best protein pancakes that don't use protein powder, please leave a comment on one of the platforms or shoot me a message. Easiest is on Instagram at Coach Josh Wood, and I'll get you that recipe because I'm very proud of it. I have not had a single complaint. It's taken me a while to really dial that in so it's maximum protein with lowest calories, and then you can top it with whatever you want. But add about 25 grams per serve of protein. It's pretty great. So if you don't have that protein pancake recipe, hit me up. Let's get you that, and you can let me know what you think. Other than that, in the works is a beginner mace course. I've been trialing some videos through YouTube. There's the first few up there for free. Get on that. I got a lot more to edit, but that's in the works. There should be a beginner mace course designed to get you from getting your first mace to actually swinging it like a pro. So stay tuned. Make sure you're following along on YouTube, where those videos will drop first, and you can also join the newsletter, where I'll also announce when that will be coming out. So you can join the newsletter on my website, strongforlife.online, or just shoot me a message and I'll give you the details. Either is fine. So those are the two big announcements for this week. There's a few other things in the works behind the scenes, but of course they're going to take a little time to get up and running. Now, let's talk about the infamous burpees. Now, I've been a personal trainer since, God, it must be 2011. I need to go back and check because I'm always having this conversation and I'm like, I think it was 2011 when I started working in gyms. But anyway, when I first started working as a personal trainer, I made a promise to myself and anybody who would listen to me. And what I said was, I am never going to prescribe burpees to anyone. And so far, 12 or 13 years in, I have never given burpees to anyone because there's almost no reason to. But I will talk about when burpees are a good idea, but that'll come a little later. So far, I've been good on that promise. I have not programmed burpees to anyone because really they are the most overused exercise by personal trainers around the world and the most poorly programmed. I have yet to speak to a PT in person who can tell me why they would prescribe burpees, and they can tell me why, but those reasons are usually wrong, or let's say not beneficial to their clients, because almost always it is the go-to for punishment. And one thing I am always working to avoid is exercise as punishment. Exercise is your birthright. Exercise is what your body is meant to do. It is meant to move. You need it for your health, not just your physical health. You need to move for your mental health, your total body, holistic health. You have to move. You cannot be healthy and not move. Sorry. If you're not moving, then you're just moving closer to the grave quicker. And I don't want to use it as punishment. Exercise isn't punishment. And when you have an exercise as ubiquitous as burpees, being most often used as a form of punishment, I'm not going to take part in that because there are better things we can do. But let's look at what a burpee is in the first place. So if you aren't aware, and you're catching this as an audio-only podcast, it's going to be a little hard to explain. But if you've ever been to a gym, you've probably seen or done a burpee. Okay, so the standard burpee, and there's other variations, but the standard one, you start standing up. You squat to the ground, you put your hands on the ground, you kick your legs back into the top push-up position, then bring your legs back to your hands, and then stand up quickly. That is a standard burpee. Some people will add a push-up. Some people add a jumping component. You might see it done with a clap. Lots of ways to use a burpee. Some people do them and jump over boxes and things like that. So that's what a burpee is, just the basic movement. But where does it come from? If you don't know, I always find this pretty hilarious. So the burpee exercise is named after its inventor, Dr. Royal H. Burpee. Real name, he was an American physiologist in the, I want to say 1930s, but you can fact check me on that. Royal H. Burpee used this movement as a fitness assessment tool. The way it worked was you did 4 of these burpees as quickly as possible. 4, not 40, not 4 minutes, 4 burpees. He measured your heart rate before, measured your heart rate after, and then measured the time it took to get your heart rate back to resting. That's it. It was used as a tool to measure your general fitness, which I think it still works very well at as an assessment tool for your fitness and your heart rate recovery. That's fine. The reason it's so challenging and was used as this fitness tool is because every time you bring your heart down, you go from a standing to a floor-based position and then back up. It's a lot of work for your heart. And so it taxes it very quickly. And then it can test by measuring your heart rate whether or not you are, quote, fit, cardiovascularly fit. But here's the thing. The way it's prescribed in most gyms, and all your F45s and your CrossFit sessions, and your new personal trainer just out of their course trying to make sure you sweat, it doesn't create the adaptations that most people are looking for. So when we look at exercise selection, exercises should be selected based on what we call the SAID principle, SAID, specific adaptation to imposed demands. The things you impose upon your body are the things it will adapt to do. Problem is, most people are using this exercise, the burpee, to do all the things it doesn't do well. There's too many moving parts. The more complex the machine, the more likely it is to break down at the weakest link. So often, it's prescribed to make you more explosive, or to make you stronger, or faster. And the thing is, it doesn't really do any of those very well. There's too much going on. And then it's prescribed, like box jumps. God, I could go on and on about box jumps. You know, people are prescribing them in these massive volumes. And the box jump is designed to be purely an explosive hip extension exercise. It's not an exercise designed to get you really good at pulling your knees to your face. It's about exploding. It's about jumping off the ground. So super high boxes, high volume, doesn't do any of those things. It causes you to adapt to something that you don't need. And the burpee is similar. Most people doing burpees cannot do the up-down component in enough volume without falling apart. So if someone says, give me 50 burpees, there are very few people who can do the standard burpee where they can jump their legs back to that top push-up position or a plank position without their hips collapsing. Then bring their legs in quickly, explosively, concisely, and then stand up quickly. You start adding jumps and push-ups in there, it just falling apart. If you ever watch a classroom or like a gym class full of people doing burpees, they look like garbage. Technique is falling apart, and it's generally in a demographic that needs as much good form as possible to avoid injury, to avoid falling apart and hurting themselves. And if you look at group fitness, high intensity group fitness and CrossFit style workout retention rate, it's pretty low. The injury rate is massive because movements like this, which are complex, have a lot of moving parts, and are given to populations who do not have the requisite strength and stability or mobility to do them well, get prescribed huge volumes of them, and then they break. Often it's just given as a hamster wheel workout. I could give my 3-year-old son a hat full of exercises, random exercises, and you have to do each one for a minute. And they pick it out of the hat. That's the exercise you do for a minute, and they just keep picking. People think that the same effect, this hamster wheel workout, where it's just about working as hard as possible, is going to get you any results. And it doesn't. It really doesn't. And the burpee is the top exercise choice for these styles of workout. A PT says, well, they need to feel pain. They need to sweat. You're not working hard enough. You were late to class. Do these exercises. And it's like, okay, so we choose a high risk exercise given generally to a demographic that is not capable of doing it with good form at high repetition. And then we treat it as punishment. Where's the benefit there? It doesn't exist. And this idea of making people, quote, work hard and suffer for a workout tends to leave people pretty beat up, tends to leave them sore and unable to do more quality workouts. And when you're doing things in that high repetition, it's just cardio. There's a place for that, but there's more effective and functional forms of cardio you can do that will relate to life more. It just isn't something that is prescribed well. It isn't prescribed in a way that makes sense. There's so many better things. If you want to get good at push-ups, do push-ups. If you want to get good at explosive push-ups, do explosive push-ups. Don't throw yourself into that position until you're very well trained and capable of doing, first of all, a normal push-up for high volume or explosive push-ups for whatever volume. And, talking about the SAID principle, you cannot do explosive power-based movements in high repetition. Volume and intensity are inversely related, meaning the more volume you have, the more repetitions you do, the lower your intensity has to be. And if someone prescribed you 3 to 5 burpees with an explosive push-up and jumping component, that would make sense for a fairly well-trained individual who can do each part of that movement with good form. You could turn it into a pretty big explosive movement. But if you're doing that for more than like 5 reps, it's not explosive anymore. You're getting into the endurance and conditioning range. And that's when form starts to fall apart. And then what are we training? Is there a particular use for 30 minutes of flopping on the ground? No. Is there a particular use for getting to the ground and standing up? Yes. How many times are you going to do that in a row in real life? Probably not many. Is there any purpose to pushing the endurance capacity of getting to the ground and standing up? Not really. Not in almost any circumstance. So, besides the fact that this is almost always prescribed incorrectly and understood as an exercise to do a bunch of things it doesn't do. It doesn't make you more explosive, especially with the volume that's typically prescribed. It doesn't really make you stronger. Again, with the volume prescribed, strength is related to your ability to produce force, which means you need more resistance to get stronger, not more volume of resistance to get stronger. And it doesn't really make you faster, again, because of volume. Speed and power are on the same end of the spectrum, and you need less volume and more intensity to develop those skills. So flopping around on the ground until you throw up, its only benefit is to make you feel tough and like you did something useful, when there are much more useful exercises to choose and much more beneficial ways to prescribe them. If you want to feel tough, take an ice bath. It's about as useful as burpees. Ooh, I can feel some of you out there cringing. Don't worry, I'll talk about ice baths another time. Because again, I think that's another one of those overrated things that people like to get on board with because it makes them feel tough. but the actual adaptations and benefit to your life are pretty minimal, especially for the amount of effort it takes. And I'm all about getting the most out of your time. All you hardworking parents and professionals, like, we're in the same boat. We don't have all the time in the world. Why would you do something for 30 minutes if you could do it for 10 and get more results? That'd be silly. So let's talk about when burpees are the correct exercise. As far as I can discern, there are essentially two main reasons to utilize the burpee movement. One is very specific to mixed martial arts, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and it's basically training what we call the sprawl. Slightly different to a burpee, where we're not holding a plank position, but we're actually dropping our hips to the ground as quickly as possible to stop an opponent or training partner from tackling us to the ground. Very, very, very useful skill in these domains. Doing that for repetition, being able to hit that quickly, very sharp with your movements, and in repetition is super important. There's a lot of value there, especially for wrestlers, but it carries on to other grappling domains and mixed martial arts. It's not a true burpee, but there's a lot of crossover, and training this modified sprawl burpee, whether it's someone actually shooting in on you, trying to grab your legs and tackle you to the ground, or whether it's because someone's rolling an exercise ball at you and then you drop into a sprawl from there, that repetitive action helps you train the movement you're going to do. A burpee isn't the same as a sprawl, but it's very similar movement pattern. So you would use a sprawl pattern similar to how you would use a burpee. And you would do this in moderate volume. You could do it low volume for being more quick and reactive and explosive. You can do it in medium volume to get used to defending multiple takedown attempts. Great. Super high volume, it's just conditioning, and just because of the slightly elevated injury risk to lower back, you're probably not going to want to do 30 minutes of sprawls, but you could do other variations that would be less likely to produce injury when you're fatigued. And fatigue really is the big point when it comes to injury prevention. Now, the next, but probably the most important use for training the burpee is burpee competitions. If you want to get really good at something, you have to practice that movement. If you want to get good at doing burpees, you have to do a lot of burpees. But that's basically the only application. And here in Hobart, we do have a lady who has, I think, a couple world records in burpees. I think the first was in a certain number of hours, and then she's got a 24-hour burpee world record. She did that by doing a lot of burpees. That's how you get good at doing burpees. That's how you get good at anything. If you want to be good at push-ups, do push-ups. If you want to be good at squats, do squats. If you want to get good at jumping, do jumping. If you want to be good at sprawling, do sprawling. If you want to be strong, lean, buff, do weight training. Burpees aren't going to help you. So if we just tie that all together, the takeaway is just fuck burpees. If someone's giving you burpees, ask why. If it's just to make you work harder, they don't know what they're doing. Sorry. If you just choose painful exercises to give to your clients because it's hard work, it makes them tougher, I guess, then just slap them in the face. That'll get their endorphins going. That'll make them tougher and better able to deal with pain. And the injury risk is lower. But don't worry, we're going to talk about face slapping and ice baths probably next week. So thanks for tuning in, folks. I hope you're not too triggered. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or concerns, hit me up. Until next week, please don't do burpees.